Some of you will know that I have been a lifelong student of Hindustani classical music, vocals specifically. And as I've grown older and hopefully evolved a little bit and gained a deeper understanding of this particular genre of music, the reasons I most appreciate it have also changed. And now, when I sing or I rehearse, what I enjoy the most about Hindustani vocal is a immense amount of freedom that the format itself not only allows, but in fact encourages. Just to very, very briefly share that, yes, there are ragas and they are defined by certain notes that they have. But once you familiarize yourself with that basic foundation, what you do in a performance is actually almost entirely impromptu and is an exploration between yourself, the artist, and the particular raga you've chosen to perform in real time. And that degree of exploration, liberty, freedom is what makes it truly special and unique, particularly compared with other forms of music, even including Western classical. The reason I'm sharing this convoluted background is that the same kind of um, leeway is not necessarily accorded to many, many other facets of life. In fact, to the contrary, in most areas of engagement that we experience in life, some construct or some individual or some organization will try their absolute best to place us humans in these very, very narrow, myopic, well-defined, boundaried, picket fenced security check lines. And when I was talking to our guest today about what we might construct our dialogue around, she so beautifully suggested that even in the therapeutic space, there is a tendency, whether by design or by default, to adhere to these very, very strict boundaries that cannot be breached, and that it was probably a good idea and worth the exercise to sort of try and figure out the advantages that same quality of exploration, discovery, freedom, and liberty in the therapeutic realm will bring to both therapist as well as client or seeker, let's say. Joining us to discuss this is transformative healing practitioner Snigdha. She's also the founder of
It's Purple Path
Purple
Healing.
Path Healing. My apologies. And what's also additionally very, very fascinating about Snigdha is that she's come into the realm of therapy, of healing, um, after having been in a very, very different zone of work and life. That also, I think, largely informs her instinctive desire to have a certain freedom in that space. And I think it's a very, very important aspect of therapy to discuss, something that we haven't yet done. And so we are calling today's session of Talk Therapy Designing One's Own Healing Ethos. This is Talk Therapy brought to you by Driveway Devi, and I'm Karthik on behalf of Driveway Devi. Not only would I like to welcome Snigdha onto the show, but also thank her for making time and for suggesting this most beautiful sort of perspective of looking at healing and therapy. So, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think we both came to this point together. It's not only my suggestion, so the credit goes to you also.
That's very kind. So anyway, now Snigdha, we usually begin this way, and I see no reason to do it differently.
Yeah.
Before we get into the do's and don'ts that constructs assert on therapeutic realm and otherwise, we would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your own healing practice first, please.
Mm. Sure. So my healing practice did not start it formally at all. It was my own real life experience. And when I started it to heal myself because I was done with everything. I was done with being sad. I was done with being failing at everything. I was just done with life. So I said, whatever comes to me, I'll take it. And the healing, transformative healing, came to me the first. And I believed in it. And I just kept walking on the path. And it wasn't linear, of course. Life isn't either. And there was a lot of ups and downs. I had to see my own darkest side. And I have been through worse than finally to come to a place where I'm expanded, much happier and content with myself.
Wonderful. I mean, it's always really, really gratifying to hear a story of a personal journey of um, arriving at a point of contentment and clarity. Um, I would love to know a little bit in the simplest layman's terms about transformative healing and about Purple Path.
Okay, so transformative healing is, again, I used to think that it is a therapy, but again, how we discussed earlier as well, कि definition जो है um, is very myopic. Transformative healing, as the name says, it actually transforms your life. How it does that? It makes you see your patterns, your belief, get to the root of it, heal it all by yourself, and then come out as a new person, as a changed person. So I'm not saying that everything that you experience gets wiped away. It doesn't happen that way. It stays, but all the dark times, all the painful experiences, they stop affecting you
Hmm.
and you can move ahead in your life. So that's what transformative healing does. And it all happens through a lot of conversations, a lot of processes, intuitive downloads, and a little woo woo.
That's wonderfully articulated. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, it is essentially certain blockages that have gotten
Yeah.
formed
Yeah,
that I suppose we develop the ability to hurdle over.
absolutely.
Okay, and tell us how Purple Path came about. What is your sort of understanding of it?
Okay. So Purple Path, earlier, I was using it as a name for my clients.
Okay.
That okay, I have this thing going on, and this is my initiative, Purple Path, and where we sit together, we heal, and this is how it was going on. But then I was suggested by my friends that it should go out on social media, and then I actually set the intention that I don't care if I'm receiving some client through it or if I'm making money through it. I just want to put out what I know through it. And those who connect with it, I'm good with that. That's it. If people are watching it at all, I'm happy. So that's how Purple Path actually got into that structure.
Is there a specific reason why it's purple?
Because purple is the color of wisdom.
Okay, we'll take that. All right. Now, talk a little bit about perhaps your own observations that you may have had in terms of how rigid structures in any path of life can become very, very stifling. And what has been your understanding, and how have you, in your own way, kind of done away with them in the healing space?
Hmm. So I would say it starts at a very young age. It starts at childhood.
Hmm.
So, pinpointing everything and improving everything right then and there is not so much possible for us. But what we can do is we can point out few things where the big changes can be made. For
Hmm.
example, how we discussed about the definition of simple words like rest, like success, and many more. How we can change people's perspective about it, how they have understood it. For me, what I have seen in my clients, they come with their set definitions, and pretty much all of them have the same definition. You know, and then when I receive them, then we work on those definition, and it somewhat changes, and it changes with the expansion. For example, let's start with the rest. And most people will say that I'll go to sleep, I'll put my body in a position of sleeping, and that would be rest. I would close my eyes. But then I would say, okay, just tell me, if you are just sitting and talking to yourself and just being with yourself, is that not rest? Is that something that your body would want? Then they get into that contemplation that, okay, my body can also ask for rest. My nervous system can ask for rest differently than what has been told to us, you know? And maybe a word you can pick up and we can discuss over that.
So that's very interesting. And I think it's
Yeah.
extremely important because consciously or unconsciously, what I'm understanding is what you're doing essentially is taking long established definitions through conditioning, cultural context, given, inherited,
Yes.
forced to be adopted, um, understanding of certain very, very fundamental yet important facets of all of our lives as human beings,
Yeah.
and really questioning that status quo and revisiting it and redefining it from a very individual standpoint. So, to me, a great example of this becomes the definition, or rather the perception of success, which is
Yes.
automatically for most people tied into money, bank balance, etc. And
Yes.
then when you start to question it and you figure out that me, the individual, may not necessarily align with it being XYZ crores in the bank, but I was able to help three people last week, and that was a damn successful week. Then I am looking at life through a completely different lens.
Absolutely. You know how beautifully you said that we inherit also. So, inheritance itself has been a word related to luxury. We inherit the legacy, the money, and the land. But people forget we inherit patterns
Oh,
and
of
beliefs
course.
also, of that family, and the projections of that family as well. So, it can expand so much. It's like having a skeleton and outline as a definition and putting your flesh inside it and making it yours. So,
Absolutely. I think perhaps another kind of way of looking at it could be that sometimes we uh, tend to mistake the method as the definition. So, when you say, using your own example of how we interpret or tend to interpret rest, the act of lying down or getting into a restful position isn't rest by itself. So
Yes.
if I can be seated like this and put on an absolutely crystal clear pair of headphones and listen to a particular track, that can be incredibly more restful to me or for me than physically lying down.
Yes. And that is your very own definition of rest. Because for me, what I have seen, the resting, even after sleeping for 8 to 10 hours a night, I never felt rested. And finally, when I made my own definition of rest, when I spoke to my body, when I asked myself, what will it look like to me when I'm resting? It was just a cold shower. So, you know, rest essentially doesn't have to be sleep. But you have to be brave enough to find your own definition, to sit with it, to listen to yourself to find it out.
Absolutely. And I think that's a process, and that's probably the process that somebody such as yourself is essentially guiding the client through, and that is chiefly your sort of role. So I think what we could say, and perhaps it's going too far to say that a lot of us are leading and living somebody else's life, but certainly I think we could say that many of us are engaged primarily with trying to realize somebody else's goals and aspirations and not necessarily our own.
That's right. That's right.
So is that something that you find with a lot of your clients?
Yes, all the time. Because see, nobody is coming from Himalayas, so nobody is that expanded that they have their own thinking. The thinking is also a projection of many people around you,
Of
the family
course.
you grow up in, you know, and it always reflects. So I have seen with so many clients, there has been scarcity mindset. And later in our journey, we saw that and we noticed that it is coming from either their parents, either their family. And I think most of the client at some point they realize that these things are coming from some sort of inheritance that they had in their family, or friend circles, or some sort of definitions again that they have been given. So it is very common, and it is very micro practice, micro thing to notice. But once you reach that, you can very well go down to the very root of it, the
Hmm.
pattern, the definitions, everything, and it opens up.
Now, there is a tangible kind of difference I have seen over the past 3.5 years of running Driveway Devi, because we've had so much extensive interaction with a vast number of healers, therapists, psychologists, etc., that and all credit due to all of them, the difference I'm deriving it at is uh, individuals who come into this line of work purely by consequence of their academic background, padhai vagara vagara, are a certain way, and those who come into this kind of work primarily compelled by their own personal journeys tend to have a very different sort of outlook towards the work itself. What have been your own observations around this, considering that to a large extent that would apply to you as well?
So initially, I had my doubts with my own healing journey when I started with the clients, especially. I used to wonder that how people who are therapists, they are how nicely certified and glorified as well. And it used to scare me that I don't have that certification.
Hmm.
And yes, uh, it has been, I think, something about Indian society. What is your certification in that field? Then later on, I realized only it came to me like an epiphany that what happened to last 15 years has been the journey. You have been in a school learning things inside and out, been there in it, not learning from books, but living it and experiencing it before preaching it.
Absolutely. And there is no greater school than life.
There's no greater school than life. So I have absolute respect for books and people who have properly learned it, but I respect myself too for this.
Yeah, I mean that's very, very crucial. Finally, before we wrap up, and I think um, you won't disagree with me that अभी भी हम अपनी country में at least we are in a situation where for a raft of reasons people cannot or do not access guidance and help, particularly in the space of anything psychological, whether it be from a traditional psychotherapist or from an alternative modality practitioner. And I often find myself, therefore, asking this question of a lot of my guests at the end that to those lakhs and lakhs of people who don't or can't access the services of a resource such as yourself, what are a few kind of pieces of advice that you would like to share without being preachy or anything, just for people, maybe some simple things that they can inculcate into their everyday lives, which might help them either get more clarity of purpose or, lead calmer lives.
So, for me, first of all, if I have to suggest something empowering, I would say that how you make a budget
Mm-hmm.
for insurance, for your education, for your food, make a budget for your mental wellness as well. And these are the times when it's not a luxury, it's a need of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just for one person, it's for our society.
Hmm.
Right. That's one thing. And I definitely, and I would never promote that, okay, I'll give you the sessions for cheaper price. That's
Right.
just, victimizing them even more. But yes, I would tell them that think about yourself. Where are you in life? Ask yourself the questions which are connected to your expansion. If
Hmm.
it's not happening, why is it not happening? you know and then maybe you will find that the clarity that you need has to have a source which you have to find and sit with you know
Hmm.
and yes, people get into meditation all the time, and we have multiple things that you can just watch it on YouTube and sit at home and do it. But I would say choose the things that makes real difference in your life.
Hmm. I think that broadly, both those pieces of advice are very, very important. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the first one. Certainly, when you say that this isn't a luxury anymore, it's a necessity. This is something that I can't emphasize enough because a lot of times, when we interact with underprivileged families, people, we are constantly told that अरे आप किस दुनिया में रह रहे हैं, यहाँ तो रोटी कपड़ा और मकान है पहले प्रायोरिटी. So it needs to be understood that this isn't some far-fetched elitist
Thing now.
aspirational thing now. It
Yes.
is very much a necessity and the need of the hour. And even to your second point about asking yourself the right questions, so if I may give myself the liberty of just taking that and kind of crystallizing it a little more, from a layman's perspective, I think what really, really it translates into is to recognize the need for that questioning in the first place. Because I don't think anybody's pausing and undertaking that process because there is no awareness that it's required and how important it is.
That's a process of acceptance, Karthik.
Yeah.
And we all talk about Karthik, acceptance like it is a huge thing to do, but it is just sitting with yourself and realizing, ki, okay, I'm in a soup.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is that ignorance is bliss. So,
Yes.
for those for a lot of people who also tend to develop this perception that any kind of healing or therapy is like some la-di-da spa day, and it's all going to be feel luxurious and pampering and all the time validating. It's not like that. It's a very hard process. So
Yes, exactly.
it's born out of asking the tough questions.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, I tell my clients also when we start, we have an introductory session before we get into the whole process. I say this is the time when you can judge me and see if you can vibe with me. Because
Absolutely.
you are going to be vulnerable here. And if you're not, then we are not doing it.
Doing it, absolutely,
You
for
know,
sure.
so, so if like healing is never easy. I initially I used to think nobody should get into healing only. It was so painful, but only to be happy now.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm really glad. I must confess, there's always a part of me that's selfishly extra happy when I come across somebody who is in this type of work for the right reasons, who's also in Jaipur. So, I'm really glad that you are carving out a purple path in the pink city because it really needs it. So, thank you for your time and for the work that you're doing. Hopefully, it's a tiny city. We will meet soon. Would love to be in touch, and all the very best.
And thank you, same to you as well with the driveway, Devi. You're doing a great job, Karthik.